Today's welcome call for the 811 PRA grantees. My name is Stacy Fox, and I'm with the Technical Assistance Collaborative. Before I turn it over to Danielle Garcia at HUD, I'd like to take just a minute to review a few webinar logistics and tips. On the left side of your screen is the viewer panel, where you'll see the presentation materials. On the right side of the screen is the control panel that includes a questions box. You may submit written questions throughout the webinar by using this questions box. And feel free to use this box if you're having any technical issues during the webinar, and I can help you out. If you do plan to speak during today's call, either during roll call or during the questions portion, please be sure to enter your audio PIN, which is shown in the audio box on the control panel. You may enter it at any point during the call by pressing pound, your PIN number, and pound on the phone. And if you have any trouble, just shoot me a question and I'll help you out. So I'm going to turn things over now to Danielle Garcia. Danielle?
Great. Thank you, Stacy. And good afternoon, everybody. I am Danielle Garcia. I'm a program analyst with the Section 811 PRA program. This program is very dear to my heart, and I will say on behalf of HUD that we are very excited to be with you today on this welcome webinar that kicks off the start of what for most of you on the phone is participation of the first time. Under the FY13-14 NOFA, we awarded 25 HFAs, and 17 of which are new to the program, so that's really huge. PRA is now going to be spread in 29 states throughout the country, so that's very exciting news. Before we dig into the slides here, we want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded so that it will be available to those grantees who cannot participate today. We will also send you a link to the recording and a copy of the PowerPoint presentation that we are about to go through. So before we start, I want to provide you with an overview of the agenda for today. We'll do some introductions followed by a review of critical goals of the PRA program. Next, we'll review some startup activities, including contracting and finalizing your budget. We will tell you about various kinds of technical assistance that is available to you to ensure that you can implement your program successfully. We expect to have some time to answer questions at the end as well. Now, with me today are my colleagues Katina Washington, Marvis Hayward. Marvis Hayward is on a working detail with us, but she's on this detail for assignment through April, but she is a strong partner within the program. We also have Elisa Anderson, who is our branch chief of Grants and New Funding Division. And I am especially pleased today that we are joined by two big supporters of this new program. Ben Metcalf is our Deputy Assistant Secretary for Multifamily Housing with HUD, and also Jennifer Burnett is the Director of Community Systems Transformation with CMS. On that note, I'm going to turn it over to Ben.
Hello and good afternoon, and to everybody on the phone. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. But first, a very big thank you to Danielle, whose incredible leadership in getting us through this process has left us so well poised to execute on the program ahead of us, and the rest of the team supporting Section 811. I'm very proud of the work that they have done in partnership with our colleagues at HHS. But mostly, I want to thank all of you on the phone for deciding that you want to be a part of this effort. My personal involvement with the Section 811 PRA project goes back quite a ways. I remember back in 2010 working very closely with the advocates and the Hill in terms of shaping the initial legislation, the enabling legislation to make this happen. And I remember very clearly the logic that drove us to the realization that we needed to really rethink the way that we had operated the Section 811 program historically, to really line it up with the way the world was moving in terms of making sure that not only did it better leverage the federal investment, but that it really aligned with the priorities at the state level. And while back in 2010 it still seemed like a very abstract idea and a very ambitious idea, it's really my incredible pleasure to be here today at a moment when we have taken this program and made it not just a novel idea, not just a demonstration, but really, frankly, a new way of doing business. I was thrilled to join our Secretary, Secretary Julian Castro, when he addressed the executive directors of the housing finance agencies at the conference of the National Council of State Housing Agencies in Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago, and I had a chance to hear him directly talk about what this program meant to him, and to talk about the fact that this was an example of the way that the federal government works at its best with our partners at the state level to deliver on the needs of the communities that we serve, and a perfect example of the way that we work best to realize housing as a platform for really changing the quality of life and improving outcomes for folks who need it the most. This second round of awards expands our reach under this program by 4,600 households. 4,600 households that are extremely low income, serving persons with disabilities. And I know for some of you on the phone, it's all new and exciting, and you're still working through the partnerships, and you're eager to go. But I also know that there are a number of states who reapply, who haven't gone through it the first time, and sometimes just struggled with the documentation and getting the contracts signed. You came back in and you re-upped, and you decided to double down on your commitment to making this work. And I want to thank you for sticking with us and for being such great partners, in particular, to help us learn, to be the guinea pigs who helped give us the feedback so we could get this right. The work that we did with you last year will make it that much easier for all the newbies in the crowd with the new grants to get up and get going a lot faster and a lot more successfully than we did last year. To be totally honest, starting up a new program under demonstration year isn't always easy for a federal agency, and that's true when you're doing something like this that's as complicated and multifaceted as it was. But your patience and support that definitely have sustained and invigorated. Bottom line, I am proud of this program, proud of the work the team here at HUD and HHS have done, and I'm very proud of the work that you all on the phone will be doing. Certainly from the HUD perspective, and again, I channel our secretary whose words were better than mine, but this illustrates absolutely the best of what HUD does. Serving the lowest and most vulnerable populations, pursuing a high degree of collaboration with our partners at HHS and our state housing and healthcare agencies, and really efficiently using every nickel of taxpayer dollars to make sure that we are providing the critical supports that are needed and the critical choice, frankly, that's needed for persons with disabilities working to live independently in a mainstream and integrated environment. So with that said, I want to hand the mic over to Jen Burnett, who has been with me, certainly at my side, at our side, ever since day one, trying to solve these problems and make sure that we do this as well as we can. I can't begin to tell you how much we have benefited from this collaboration and from Jennifer's personal involvement and her team's personal involvement. She has been a joy to work with and a real anchor and leader in getting us to where we are today. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, Ben. Good afternoon, everyone, and congratulations. At CMS, we are also very excited about this new 811 program, and I know that this is actually the second round, but it still feels very new. I want to share some information about the HUD and HHS partnership that Ben just talked about, because I think it's important for you as you move into kind of implementing this program to understand that at the federal level there is an extensive collaborative relationship happening that is sort of an underpinning of helping you get your work done. Since 2010, when then Secretary Donovan of HUD and then Secretary Sebelius of HHS kicked off the Year of Community Living, HUD and HHS have really worked extensively to enhance our relationship. We developed a strong collaborative relationship amongst ourselves, between ourselves, and what we found best was to kind of roll up our sleeves and work on things. So the collaboration that we formed on PRA really had staff from HHS and CMS kind of rolling up our sleeves and sitting with the HUD staff to really iron out what this program might look like and how they implementing it and supporting them to implement it. We also have worked collaboratively on what was the NED 2 voucher, non-elderly disabled 2 voucher program, and we're really engaging in some data sharing to try to sort things out and make both of our programs align in a better way. And I think most importantly, something that we have been doing on an ongoing basis is really engaging and supporting state Medicaid offices and to be able to facilitate relationships with their housing partners. And on the HUD side, they're doing the same thing. So we're out in the community actually making connections at the state level. The 811 program, the PRA, is a particularly exciting program because it engages the state Medicaid office. It also incorporates many of CMS's principles. People with disabilities have the opportunity to live in integrated housing as expected by Olmstead, and it also aligns nicely with the new Home and Community-Based Services Settings Regulation. This is permanent housing with tenants holding a lease in which services are voluntary. Many of the target populations in the grantees programs are potentially in the MF Money Follows the Person program, or they are home and community-based service waiver participants or some other authority. They might be a state plan participant. But CMS is really committed to supporting the home and community-based programs in your states to ensure that they will be able to take advantage of the housing opportunities made available and fill units in a timely manner. So we really look forward to working with all of you to create these important opportunities for people with disabilities. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Danielle, and good luck. You'll be hearing more from us. Danielle?
Great, thank you, Ben and Jennifer. And I think everyone can agree that it really speaks volumes of the effort of collaboration that we stress with the housing and the services entity. There's been a big improvement with the partnership with HUD and HHS here at headquarters, and as well you'll see as you develop your program how close and involved you're involved with your state Medicaid and the State Health and Human Services Agency. So essentially the resident gets the best of both worlds, where they're getting the housing they need from HUD and the services, the voluntary services from the servicing agency. So next we'd like to do a roll call in alphabetical order. Please have one person introduce your primary point of contact for the program. And for the new grantees, if you can tell us something fun, interesting fact about your program, maybe something about who you're serving or something else that you think would be unique that you'd like to let us know. For FY12 folks, the previous grantees, maybe you can tell us something that's different within your application for FY13, if there's anything different, or perhaps a little piece of helpful advice to your new colleagues. And Stacey, if you want to run through the reminders of how to unmute the phones, that would be great.
Yes, so if you plan on speaking during roll call, please enter your audio PIN, and you can do that by hitting pound on your phone, your audio PIN number, pound again, and I'll be able to unmute you so that you can speak. And so so first up on roll call is Alaska. We'll kick things off with Alaska, and I believe that Carrie Collins was going to speak for your group. Carrie, are you there? All right, Carrie, if you're having any trouble with audio, feel free to shoot me a message and we can loop back around with you. I'll head to Arizona next. Arizona, are you there?
Yes, we are. Can you hear us?
We can, thank you.
Very good. This is Andrew Rail. I'm here with several staff. We're glad to be part of this program. We are going to serve 54 individuals. We're operating the program in conjunction with our low-income housing tax credit program, where we're going to pair the units with tax credit development over a period of 4 years. We are serving extremely low-income households where at least one person has a developmental disability and is eligible for community-based long care services through the Arizona Long-Term Care Services. And we're working with our Arizona Department of Economic Security to select the applicants. And that's Arizona.
Thank you, Arizona. We're going to move on to California, where I believe Chris Penny is going to speak. Chris, are you there? Were you able to unmute yourself? All right, Chris, we'll come back to you because I know we're working on audio. Next is Colorado. Colorado, are you there? And remember that you can speak by entering pound, your audio PIN, which is shown in your audio panel box, and pound again. Another second, Colorado. Okay, we'll come back in the next cycle. Connecticut. Connecticut, are you there? I believe that it was going to be Michael.
Stacy,
Michael, can you hear us?
Stacy, this is Danielle. I think we thought it would be a great idea, but maybe we should just go ahead and continue.
All right, that sounds good.
Okay, so on the list here, obviously you guys will see that we have the list of the 25 states awarded, and we have plenty of unmuted conversations that will take place in the next couple of months to where we could certainly interact and get to know each other and get to know the programs that you plan on running in the state. So we can go to move on to the next slide. Alrighty. So before we get into some of the nitty-gritty details about the program startup, Ben is going to remind us all about the important goals of the program and really the reason why we're all here today.
So, look, partnership as a concept has already been mentioned. You know, I've already talked about it. Jennifer already talked about it. But I can't, you know, it can't be emphasized enough. Underlying this program is the idea that the partnership between the state housing agency and your counterpart in the state health and human service or Medicaid agencies underlies the success and the goals of what you're trying to achieve. That you have come together as a state, frankly, to lay out a plan for how you're going to use this resource to address a critical need within your jurisdiction. And that partnership is critical to support and sustain this effort. That joint commitment is what will allow us to be successful in not only getting the bricks and sticks and up and running, but also to make sure that when we move folks in, we move them in ways that ensure that they are able to succeed and in fact live up to the goal of living independently in an integrated setting. So that is a big part of it. And I will say that even though we're in the second round, we're very much still in the laboratory. And I think there's a lot of different models for what that state-level partnership looks like, what the right rhythms are for interacting with your counterparts in those other agencies, the governance structure, the degree of involvement by other folks, your governor's office, or otherwise. So that's one big goal is making that work. And the second and related part is just understanding what the innovative strategies are here that are working for you to actually deliver results on the ground. So trying to figure out, what works. Not everything will, and I think what we found already is that folks often do have to adapt and be flexible as they move forward to make sure that we're getting the right services connected with the right folks in the right environments. Moving to the next slide, obviously identifying innovative and replicable ways to not only use these resources, but to really leverage them. So what are the ways in which these dollars can attract other sources of capital that might otherwise be going to do affordable housing serving less vulnerable populations? To what extent does this resource become also a way for helping you all to think through kind of ways of making our large mainstream systems, whether it's tax credit QAPs or home consolidated plans, actually support and sustain this kind of work in other contexts. And then obviously just simply in the numbers. We know we have a need, and making sure that we really do see, in fact, these dollars, these ambitions, this innovation translating into actual people being actually served in housing. And we do have a target here based on what you all have given your application of 7,500 units of housing that we hope to see on the ground. And lastly, there is a goal of efficiency and effective uses of these resources together. And many of you know we are in the process of doing some evaluation here. But one of the big questions that sits outside that we get a lot of, both the healthcare and housing folks here in DC get a lot of questions about is, well, what does this actually do in terms of at least arresting the increases in healthcare expenditures on the Medicaid side that are paid for by states and federal government? How helpful is this intervention from a from a cost-effectiveness perspective as we think about a scarce number of resources that are available federally and at the state level to support our healthcare and housing programs.
Great, thanks, Ben. All right, so now if we start getting into that nitty-gritty, I know everybody's wondering what's going to happen next. First, you're going to be highly encouraged to attend all of our upcoming training sessions. The schedule will be discussed later in the presentation. You're going to see that we've created a very aggressive training schedule for the next few months. In the middle of these training sessions, you're going to receive a HUD preliminary award letter. At that point, you will enter into a negotiation period. There may be things in your application that we didn't understand or may ask you to change. You may have to make changes to your budget. Once we all come into agreement, you will receive a final award letter followed by the cooperative agreement. The cooperative agreement is a contract, a grant agreement with 12 exhibits to it, and in a webinar on April 2nd, you will have the opportunity to learn more about the cooperative agreement. The biggest thing I'd like for you to walk away from today is the need to learn the program and understand the program. We don't want to prematurely give you the cooperative agreement to execute and you not know what you're getting into. So with that said, after our training sessions and negotiations, we are looking to send the cooperative agreements to our grantees probably around midsummer. In regard to the budgets that were submitted with the applications, not all grantees submitted budgets that we felt were calculated in a way intended by the NOFA. One issue is that administrative cost program is 8% amount of rental assistance award. Your budgets will have to be recalculated if they were not in line with the NOFA or HUD requirements, and the final budget is actually Exhibit 6 of the cooperative agreement. We will go into a little more detail, but each state will be assigned a technical assistant team lead from our technical assistance contractor, which is TAC. The TA lead will contact you in the next week to work with you on a final budget. It's important to remember that this is a preliminary award, and it is possible that your grant amount may be adjusted. After you work with your TA lead, you will revise your budget, provide it to TAC, and this is your homework assignment. The deadline will be April 2nd. Essentially, we cannot move forward with the cooperative agreement without this required budget. Next slide. Alrighty. So this slide gives you a preview of the Exhibit 6 budget form. It's pretty different from what you submitted in the NOFA, but the form is very straightforward, and luckily does most of the calculations for you. Again, please rest assured that your TA lead will be contacting you over the next week to work together on the budget. Now, if we next discuss the technical assistance HUD will make available to you as you implement your program. As we dip into these different avenues, one essentially TA that we provide is peer-to-peer calls. These are regularly, sometimes monthly calls with HUD and the grantees, which provide y'all an opportunity to share information with each other and to also ask questions amongst each other to HUD staff. Now keep in mind that PRA is a new model. HUD won't necessarily have the answer, but we are all learning together and working collaboratively with each other. We are also starting focus groups. The first year of the program, we learned there are a lot of areas that the grantees wanted to focus on, and we have other opportunities for peer-to-peer discussions. So we're in the middle of scheduling 4 groups at this time with the FY12 grantees. Just to give you a highlight of the topics that these focus groups include would be working with owners. That would be like marketing your program, essentially. Working with existing properties. Working on tenant selection plan or occupancy policies with the program, and perhaps even services and support. The fiscal year 13 grantees, so all the new folks, will have an opportunity to join these focus groups or others at a later date. We also offer webinars. So HUD, webinars can be on specific calls as needed. In the past, we've done webinars on environmental review and HUD systems, or even the one you're on today. Next slide. Alrighty, so great. Another great resource we have is we're excited that we have developed a PRA program mini site on HUD Exchange. You can find lots of information about the program, including FAQs, copies of awards, grant contracts, and much more. Through HUD Exchange, you can sign up for PRA listservs as well as for other programs. We strongly encourage you to do this as you don't want to miss out on important information. And this slide here shows you the mailing list that you can sign up for once you click subscribe and add in your information. Then down at the bottom, you'd want to check off 811 PRA. And in addition to the mini-site and program-wide TA, HUD offers individual grantees TA through its TA provider, TAC. Lisa Sloan and Stacy Fox of TAC are managing this TA project and are also on the phone with us today. But you will be given a one-on-one TA lead for each state. Each of you have been involved in the program, so we're very excited to get everything up and running for you. The TA lead is the person who will be contacting you within the next week to introduce themselves, set up some time to talk with you, and also answer your questions and work on your budget. Now, as we start up the training sessions, we've developed a series of webinars to help you start up the program, and these sessions are going to be recorded as well. So that includes, obviously, today's welcome call, which is the first webinar. The second webinar is going to be a series that will take place April 2nd, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the focus of this call will be an overview of the cooperative agreement and related exhibits. The third webinar will cover a number of different startup tasks that all states will be doing, such as identifying and selecting units, the need to coordinate regularly with your partners, discussion of the Affirmative Fair Housing Marketing Plan, tenant selection plan, waitlist, and referrals. This webinar will take place April 9th, also 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The fourth webinar will cover HUD's expectations for the reporting requirement. While you won't be ready to report for a while, this webinar will help you make sure that you have systems in place for the data that you're going to need for the reporting. Registration is required for all webinars, and you will receive emails from TAC similar to the one you received for this webinar. Finally, we're hoping to hold HUD's second annual PRA convening on May 13th and 14th, so please tentatively save this date. Now, we don't officially have approval for the conference room, but I would love for y'all to save the date in your calendar. Once we get that approval, we will certainly share, and then everybody can start booking travel. The convening will be in D.C., and the first day of what we brainstorm is day one of the convening will be to new grantees. In the evening of the 13th, we're looking to host an informal socializing event, which of course we will extend the invite to FY12 grantees. And day two of the convening will be appropriate agenda for FY12 and FY13 grantees. Now, we already mentioned that we also have peer-to-peer calls. These are generally the second Thursday of the month, although we don't have these every month. But the date for our next call for March and April are on the screen. So we have a call a week from today on March 19th, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, we've already started receiving questions from grantees. Let me say a few things about the questions that we're getting. There are some FAQs already on the mini site that I would strongly encourage you to take a look at. A lot of those Q&As should hopefully answer some of your program startup or just general questions about the program itself. And we're also looking to post many more FAQs in the next couple of months. You can also call or email your HUD staff or your TA lead with any questions. We encourage you to start with the TA lead, and then they can bring any HUD questions that require our attention. And also keep in mind this is a new program. We see interesting new questions every day, so any question is really a good question, so just keep them coming. With that said, we have already received a few questions from new grantees, and we'd like to answer them a little differently. So Katina Washington will be speaking next.
As you can see, the polling question on your screen, as well as 4 possible answers. Pick the answer that you think is correct. You have 30 seconds to make your selection. Then we'll look and see how many of you voted for each answer and which answer is correct. So polling question 1, specific to track payments. How are FHAs working with PBCAs? Oh, so the first one we have some grantees are PBCAs. The second one, some grantees are TCAs. The third one, some grantees contract with PDCA. The fourth answer, some grantees contract with service bureaus. And the fifth one, all of the above.
Thanks, Katina. We'll give it just another 5 seconds or so because a lot of answers have already come in.
Okay.
Great. So hopefully on your screen you are seeing the results right now, and 85% came in with all of the above, which is the correct answer.
Yes. One of the big startup issues over the last year has been around HUD systems. For the new folks, please thank your FY12 grantees for working through this issue for you. We will have a specific call about HUD systems later this spring and discuss again at our convening in May. Now, let's try another one. Polling question number 2. How have FY12 grantees worked to get developers involved? First, we have qualified allocation plans include incentives for group meetings with developers, one-on-one meetings with developers, identifying historically creative developers, or the last one, all of the above.
Thanks, Katina. So keep those answers coming in. I'm going to give it about another 10 seconds. Great. And for this one, of all the answers we received, 100% agree that it was all of the above, and that was the correct answer. So great job.
Yes, great job, all of you. The FY12 grantees have used a variety of strategies to get the FY12 grantees involved and interested in the program. These strategies include all of the above. States have provided extra points and other incentives in their QAP to obtain developer involvement. A great example is Louisiana. A number of states have had group meetings with developers. Another 2 great examples are Maryland and Pennsylvania. Some have also conducted one-on-one meetings with states also can be productive. Identifying those developers who are mission-driven or like to be a part of new initiatives have also worked. Massachusetts and Maryland have used this strategy, for example. So you'll hear more about these in the future in the startup webinars. Great, thanks Katina.
So yeah, and the reason for these polling questions is really just to kind of get your brain thinking creatively about the program, how you want to structure it. We don't want you to dip in the weeds of the program just yet, but to kind of think big picture, the partnership effort you need to start making, if you haven't already done so, with your servicing partners, and just rereading your application and brainstorming how you want to move forward. I can say every program is different, but we're going to have a lot of peer-to-peer conversations where we can bounce ideas off of each other with what may be working with one state may not work with another state, and so on. So just to recap where we're at right now, what the next steps you're going to take is we'd like for you to attend the peer-to-peer grantee call March 19th, a week from today, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Stacy will be sending out the registration link for that. You're going to be looking for a preliminary award letter from HUD. Your TAC TA lead will contact you in the next week to help answer general questions you may have, and to also help work and finalize your budget, which is Exhibit 6. We want you to start registering for the startup training webinars that are going to be hosted all throughout the month of April, and to tentatively save the date for the convening in May. Now, I think that wraps up the presentation. We have a few closing remarks we'd like to do as well, but before we get there, are there any questions from the states, or any questions that have come in writing?
Yes, Danielle. We got a couple of questions in the chat box, and I would remind people that you can send your questions in the chat box. these are sort of related. When do you expect the cooperative agreement to be available? And given that, when do you expect funding to be able to start?
Alrighty, good question. So this goes back to, I know everyone's really excited to get the program up and running. I can say that there will not be a delay like there was with FY12 round. We are on the ground ready to get the program up and running just as you are. First thing, though, we want you to learn the program. The cooperative agreement is available on the HUD Exchange website. However, I would prefer that you glance over it to kind of read the requirements. We are going to host a webinar on April 2nd that will cover the detail of the final cooperative agreement. In the next 2 weeks, we have program staff that want to make a few edits to the cooperative agreement, so what's posted online will not be the final version that we will ask you to execute. And the reason being, it won't be substantial changes, but there were a few different items in the first NOFA that were different in the second NOFA. For example, we had a strong request to do leveraging, so we want to be able to track the leveraging that you're doing, how you're setting your initial rents. Some states were setting initial rents below FMRs using maybe a percentage of AMI, so we want to document that in the rental assistance contracts and so on. So we're doing a final comb through of the cooperative agreement, and it should be expected to be presented to you by April 2nd. And with that said, all of the month of April we will be doing training webinars, and so we're looking to send out the cooperative agreement shortly after our convening in May. But before that, you will obviously have seen the final draft, so you can start sharing that final draft with your council.
Great, Danielle. One of the other questions that came in just before you started talking about it is whether there would be any major changes to the cooperative agreement. And I think you indicated just now that there would be nothing major.
Correct. Yeah, we're doing a final come through this month, but I don't anticipate anything substantial within the cooperative agreement. A lot of it is just switch up of terminology and so on. And what I can do is for the existing grantees, I can give you a red line version of what's going to be changed, just that way you know what's different.
Thank you. A couple more questions are coming in. Someone asked whether you could talk about the agenda for the convening conference. Are you prepared to do that?
We have a draft agenda, but I actually don't have it on me right now. But we have as we mentioned, we have a call next Thursday, and our current grantees, beyond the 8 that are on this call, the rest of them do not know about this tentative convening, so we can certainly share a rough draft agenda for the May convening next week. Great.
Question, if states were awarded last round, do they need to sign a new cooperative agreement, or can they somehow just extend the existing, and will funding be available more quickly?
Yeah, so for states that were awarded last round, you will need to sign a new cooperative agreement. Essentially, the way we're thinking about it is it's really different pots of money. So you will be given a new contract number for the FY13 pot of money. So that includes a new cooperative agreement and so on. Implementation goes, once you have your signed agreement, then you can forcefully move forward with your move-ins. And I think that brings into a good transition right now is that for the FY12 folks, there was a bit of a delay, would say it lightly, with the program getting implemented, but we are very excited to say that we have our first resident who is about to get on PRA subsidy this month in California, Cal HSA, so big shout out to California. So that's very little air of excitement we have going on here at HUD and in California. I'm sure everybody else interested party within the program. And then also Washington State, who was not in this round. They were around for the first grantee for the first round. But there's a lot of movement in Washington State with getting a resident on our assistance within the next month.
Thank you. One of the FY12 states wants to know whether it would be possible to set up a call for the FY12 grantees to kind of talk through what the changes have been made to the cooperative agreement?
Yes, I think that's a very reasonable request, so we will certainly do that.
Okay, great. Someone asks about the convening. Someone asks, is day one of the convening set aside for new grantees only?
No, of course the current grantees are more than welcome to join. It's just, I can also imagine these training sessions in April for current grantees. If you have any new staff on your program that want to learn the program itself, that's a wonderful opportunity for training. But it's kind of at your interest level. So if you feel like you know everything, you're up and running with the program, you don't have any questions, related to where, if you think where you were last year, last convening in May, it's kind of your call. But we will certainly extend the invitation to everybody, but day one agenda will more be geared to the new folks, getting the new folks on board who are not familiar with the program.
Thank you. Someone asked, how many attendees will you allow for the convening meeting?
We are, the space we reserved, we were trying to get a good number of attendees to attend. So my goal is to have the housing and servicing partners there in the room. I think this brings together the gap from housing not knowing the servicing terminology and the servicing folks not knowing the housing terminology. So there's a lot of acronyms out there that I don't, I'm not that familiar with the servicing side, but I'm getting familiar with them. But I think having both parties in the same room is always beneficial. So once we get approval on the space, then we will know the amount that we can invite, and we'll get back.
Okay. Thank you. Here's kind of an interesting question, and I don't know if you want to answer it now or hold off till the webinar that focuses on developers. But a question someone asked is, have developers wanted higher deposits or other concessions to serve the target populations? And if that is the case, can PBRA be used for that?
Developers, they're going to want a little carrot as far as the incentive goes, but keep in mind that the program, the grant that you received, is pure rental assistance, so it needs to go to the rental assistance of the resident. But there are incentives, creative incentives that you can do for your developers. So if they want, say you're working with tax credit, they want to get the award, you could give maybe a little more points in your QAP for that specific developer to get PRA units online.
Thank you. And probably more on that in the webinar that talks about developers. So stay tuned for that. Someone points out that in addition to the rental assistance, you can use the PRA for admin funds as well, correct?
That's correct, yes. And that's something that we will be finalizing within your budgets in the next couple of weeks.
And to repeat, those are the only two uses of the funds?
Correct.
Okay. Any more questions that people want to put into the chat box? That was my last one so far. Give it maybe a couple of seconds. Looks like that's it for now.
Alrighty, great. And folks, that's Lisa Sloan with TAC. She's a very helpful resource, big advocate of the program. She's been a tremendous help to the program working with HUD in the last few years, so thank you, Lisa. So this slide here lists the contacts for HUD, CMS, and TAC. Feel free to email or call any of us with your questions. We look forward to working with you, especially over the next few months as we kick off your new program. We introduce all the names besides CMS with John Sorensen. John is also, we've made very big waves with working together collaboratively with HHS, and John, again, is a very great resource to have, and we're very happy to have him on the program. So with that said, I will turn over to Ben and Jennifer if they have any final comments.
Okay. Hi, everybody. That was very helpful. We really look forward to working with all of you to assure that you're able to lease up your units with extremely low-income people with disabilities. And I want to say congratulations to all the grantees. We at CMS are committed to supporting the partnerships you cultivate at the state and local level. So thank you for having me. Ben?
Thanks, Jennifer. To you, thanks, Danielle, Katina, to our partners at TAC. And again, thanks to everybody on the phone, and a big, big congratulations. This is an exciting opportunity, and I am thrilled to think about the number of partners that we have brought into this program from across all the land, and very excited to see what comes forth as folks get going and start doing the work and sharing their best practices. So I hope all of you will make sure to participate in the forums that are getting set up, to really engage honestly and earnestly in the peer-to-peer conversations, and of course let us here at HUD and HHS as well know what we can be doing better to make this program work and to make sure you guys are successful in achieving the goals that you've laid out in your grant agreements and in your partnership agreements with your allies. So keep the feedback coming. Keep the work going, and make sure that we all do everything we can to make sure that we are as successful as possible in serving this in delivering on this very important program and serving this very important population. Thank you. Appreciate your time, everybody.
Thanks, Ben and Jennifer, and again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.